Sali, come here at once.
The dead of night, April 22nd, 1990, at the Presidential Palace in Lagos, Nigeria's First Lady, Mariam Babangida, glances out a window. She spots something odd, unusual troop movements. Now, this shouldn't normally be a cause for panic. The place is practically a fortress, crawling with over 300 guards from infantry, artillery, even the armored corps. But this is different.
You must leave now. They are coming for you.
Bello, something is not right outside. Go and check it, but do it quietly. I don't want to raise alarm for nothing. And please, be careful.
Her husband, the president, General Ibrahim Babangida, sends his trusted aide-de-camp, Colonel UK Bello, to go and see what all the fuss is about. It's the last time he'll see him alive. Colonel Bello is shot, dead. Seconds later, all hell breaks loose. The presidential living quarters are ripped apart by a storm of bullets. It's no longer a question of if something is wrong. A full-blown coup is underway against one of the most heavily guarded dictators in Africa. The question is, who in their right mind would be mad enough to try it? So, who was behind this audacious attack? The history books will tell you this was the Orkar Coup, named after a charismatic officer, Major Gideon Orkar, and you'd be forgiven for thinking so. I mean, it was his voice that would soon crackle over the radio, announcing the revolution to the nation. But that's not the whole story. In fact, it's not even close. Gideon Orkar wasn't the mastermind. He was a late recruit, a face for the operation. The real prime mover was this man, Major Saliba Mukoro, a member of the military police with a PhD in criminology. Alongside him were 4 other core conspirators, Niam, Obahor, Empere, and Tolofari. These were the men who dreamt up the impossible, toppling a regime that had eyes and ears everywhere. And to do it, they knew they'd have to break every rule in the coup plotting playbook. Now, normally, when you plot a coup, you need a few key ingredients. A high-ranking general, a loyal tank division, an army at your back. Mukoro and his crew had none of that.
Look around you, Gideon. Nothing changes. The same fat cats in Abuja get richer, while our boys in the barracks can barely feed their families.
What is this about, Saliba? This talk is bordering on treason. This is madness. My career, my family, everything would be out.
Not treason if you succeed. Babangida is a thief. This regime is a disease. We are the cure. We must act.
Are you seriously suggesting we overthrow the government?
The risk is doing nothing while our country is bled dry. Join us, Gab. Be a hero.
Most of them were staff officers, paper pushers, cops. They had no troops to command. They were trying to take down a fortress with a handful of guys. It was absurd. It was suicidal. Unless you threw the entire military playbook in the bin. If you can't use the army, then don't. Their solution was pure genius, straight out of a heist movie. They sourced their muscle from outside the army, recruiting ex-soldiers under the cover of a private security firm. Their assault vehicles weren't tanks. They were beat-up J5 buses and Peugeot station wagons. And their top-secret headquarters? Not some hidden military bunker, but the dusty warehouse of a fishing company owned by a civilian friend. They were planning a revolution on a shoestring budget, disguised as a small business. Babangida's spies were watching the barracks, the generals, the tank battalions. They never thought to watch the fishermen. At 5:25 a.m. on April 22nd, the plan goes live. Across Nigeria, the normal radio programming is cut, replaced by the voice of Major Gideon Orkar. And what he says sends a shockwave through the country. This isn't just a change of leadership, he declares. This is a revolution. He accuses the Babangida regime of rampant corruption, of plotting to install himself as president for life, and of a grand conspiracy, siphoning the oil wealth from the oppressed south to enrich a powerful cabal in the north. For millions listening, these words are electrifying. It's everything they'd been whispering in private, now being blasted over the national airwaves. But then comes the bombshell, the announcement that will define the entire coup. Orkar declares that 5 northern states, the very heartland of the ruling class, are hereby excised from the country, kicked out, banished, temporarily fired from the Nigerian Union. It was an unthinkable, revolutionary, and, as it would turn out, catastrophic move. In one sentence, the plotters had turned a popular uprising into a geographical civil war. But while Orkar was winning the war of words on the radio, his men on the ground were trying to win a much realer war, one fought with bullets and explosives. The man leading the charge on the presidential palace itself was Lieutenant Echendu. His orders were simple and brutally direct: blow the place up. And he did. They pummeled the complex, targeting the president's personal bedroom with heavy shells. They blew the roof right off his living quarters. Make no mistake, they weren't there to arrest him. They were there to kill him. In the smoke and confusion, he and his family managed to escape by the skin of their teeth, smuggled out through a secret tunnel to a safe house somewhere in the city. To this day, no one knows exactly where that tunnel was or where they hid. The dictator had vanished, leaving his palace in ruins and a group of young revolutionary officers in seeming control of the country. With the president gone and his palace in flames, the coup was on the brink of success. The plotters had a list of key regime figures to neutralize. At the very top of that list, the Army Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Sani Abacha. They tracked him to a nearby guest house and shot the place to pieces trying to find him.
He's not here! Search the rest of the house!
But Abacha wasn't there, or so they thought. In a scene straight out of a spy thriller, he was hiding behind a false wall in the bedroom, listening as the assassins hunted for him just feet away. It was a fatal mistake. The plotters had left the phone lines open. Once they were gone, Abacha got on the horn and became the rallying point for the entire regime. The coup was localized to Lagos, but the army was not. And now, thanks to one open phone line, the whole damn army knew what was happening. Sani Abacha was turning the tide, and he was coming for them. So, how did it all go so wrong? How did a coup that came so close to victory collapse into failure? It all came down to 3 crucial amateur mistakes. Mistake number 1, they failed to take out the kingpins. They hit the palace, but the president escaped. They went after Abacha, but he vanished behind a wall. The entire top brass of the military slipped through their fingers. Mistake number 2, they left the phones on. A simple but unforgivable oversight. It was like staging a bank robbery, but leaving the silent alarm fully operational. But their biggest mistake, the one that truly sealed their fate, was that bombshell radio announcement. By forcefully removing 5 northern states from Nigeria, they ignited dissent across the country and even international attention. In a stroke of bitter irony, the very generals leading the charge to crush the coup were from the exact states the plotters had kicked out. For Abacha and his men, they weren't just putting down a mutiny anymore, they were taking back their homeland. So what drives a group of junior officers to risk everything? It wasn't just about power, it was about this place, the Niger Delta, the region that produced all of Nigeria's oil wealth, yet saw almost none of it. For years they had watched their land get polluted while the money flowed north. They were shut out of government, shut out of the military's top ranks. The The plotters saw it as a slow-motion robbery of their people. After the coup was crushed, the government didn't listen. They swept the anger under the rug. But you can only ignore an injustice for so long. The failed coup of 1990 wasn't an end, it was a beginning. The first violent tremor of a much larger earthquake to come. A struggle for control that would haunt Nigeria for decades. In the aftermath, the regime came back with a vengeance. A brutal crackdown swept the nation. Nearly 900 people were arrested. Then came the trials, secret military tribunals held behind closed doors.
You took up arms against your commander-in-chief. Do you deny this?
I was told we were fighting for a better Nigeria. For our people.
Your people. Your loyalty is to this army and to the president, not to some misguided fantasy from a few maidens. Very well. The sentence is identified firing squad.
In total, 69 people were marched out.
Secure him tightly.
Yes, sir.
And executed by firing squad. But here's the final bitter twist. The masterminds, the men who dreamt it all up, they got away. Mukoro, Nayam, the civilian financier Ogboru, they had an escape plan. While the soldiers they recruited faced the firing squad, the architects of the coup slipped out of the country. They had lost the battle, but in the dark and complicated history of Nigeria, they had just fired the first shot in a much, much longer war. The story of the April 1990 coup is a brutal lesson in what happens when revolution fails. But the echoes of that day didn't just fade away. In fact, some whisper that the seeds of another, even darker tragedy were planted in its aftermath. A mysterious plane crash 2 years later. But that's a story for another time. To see how the cycle of coups in Nigeria began, check out our video on the bloody revolution of 1966, or click here to discover the fate of another general who found himself on the wrong side of a power play. Thanks for watching. And remember, history is never as simple as it looks. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.